Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Equine Episode Examination, where today we will be discussing the Season 4 episode of MLP Daring Don't. For that, so Daring Do episode today is the 4th episode of Season 4. Or maybe we won't discuss it, I don't know. Daring Do, Daring Don't. So anyway, welcome to Equine Episode Examination. If this is your first time joining us, pretty much we're going to be discussing this episode. Usually we'll be discussing newer episodes once we get back into new episodes in the new season. But for now, we're revisiting some older episodes and just doing what we do for those. We're up to Season 4 now, and so we're going through Season 4 episodes until Season 7 premieres sometime in the spring. So pretty much what we're going to do is just going to discuss the episode, give our opinions on it, what we liked, what we didn't like, kind of start broad subject and go into more finer details of the episode as we continue through our discussion today. So I'm Rain Shadow, joined by a couple other people in here if they want to make themselves known.
Hey everyone, I'm Mr. Ben.
This is Jay Smith.
And so we'll all obviously be discussing this here in the call, but of course everyone is encouraged to participate in the discussion and bring up other topics for discussion or your opinion or whatever about the episode as we go through, because of course we probably, won't have everything thought out of what is reasonable to discuss for the episode. So please also bring up things on your own in chat to discuss. So let's go ahead and we'll get started here. So what's everyone's initial thoughts on Daring Don't?
I remember a lot of people were really angry about this particular episode for some reason, and that was because of the fact that everyone, not everyone, but a great deal of people were like totally up in arms about the fact that Daring Do is actually like a real character in universe as opposed to like a fictional one. And I'm like just thinking to myself, you're already raging about Twilight being a princess. Now you're raging about an in-universe character not being fictional.
Oh, my headcanon.
Oh, yes.
Right in the headcanon.
So yeah. I think this was the first episode where I don't remember if this was the first episode. It was either this one or Castlemania where I went off with a running gag of Season 4 being the headcanon destruction episode season.
Also, the season of guessing what's in the box.
Yeah.
We might never know. It was definitely one of the takeaways from this episode, community-wise, was kind of a divide between, this was a pretty cool episode with Daring Do. I like what they did with it, and why the fuck did they make Daring Do like real and not a fictional character, and kind of wrestling with their kind of head canons on what they thought and kind of how that impacts how they saw the series for it. I personally, I liked it. I mean, really, for me, I really didn't care either way. I'm not invested in a way that if Daring Do is not real or is real, that it's going to affect me personally in a way. I mean, it's just wherever the show's creators decide to take it, and they took it there, and I like what they did with it, and kind of made this as kind of a character building episode for Rainbow Dash, and kind of seeing her, and we'll get to there when we get there in the discussion, but kind of seeing her off her guard and a little bit different, meeting one of her idols, and it opens up some other story possibilities. Of course, we got another Daring Do related episode in Season 6 where they were able to kind of revisit some of this, and it really, in a way, it's kind of like either do it or you don't do it at all, because if you're going to have another Daring Do episode, you really can't do another Daring Do episode unless somehow you get the ponies involved in the universe. Like either Daring Do's real or they get sucked into the book like they did later on the season in Power Ponies. Because, we've already done an episode with Rainbow Dash reading the Daring Do book, and we kind of see how it is in her mind as the actions are playing out. So the only other way you can have Daring Do again is if you have pretty much another episode where Rainbow Dash reads the book again, and you're kind of repeating yourself. So really, if you're going to go this route and want to do more stuff with Daring Do, really this was the really only logical choice to open up those more story possibilities going forward. So
just bringing Patton Oswalt into the show and probably one of the more fun episodes of the last season.
But overall, my personal opinion on the episode, I liked what they did with it. I like how they made it kind of a character episode for Rainbow Dash, while still having a lot of action, obviously in it, and all the Indiana Jones and a little bit of like Lord of the Rings parodies, in it as well. It was nice to see more of the characters that we kind of saw glimpses of in the previous Daring Do episode, and Read It and Weep. And it was nice seeing that kind of continuity from that episode as well. So I really enjoyed it. It's not going to be an episode that's going to, for me personally, blow other episodes out of the water. But I mean, it was a really enjoyable episode, and I like what they did with it. I definitely don't have any problems with it. So let's go ahead and we will go on to the story and the writing of the episode. So this episode was written by none other than Dave Polsky, of course, a veteran for writing on the show. Let me look something up. I was going to look something up before we started today, and I got a little sidetracked. Yeah, I mean, I really think that this was the season, because next season he just had the one episode. I couldn't remember if it was season 4 or season 5, but I remember after one of the seasons, and it was definitely season 4, which I really think Dave Polsky was one of the best writers on the season. He had so many really, what I thought were really great episodes of the season. Yeah, he just had 2 seasons. So it must have been this one, because he had this one. He wrote Rarity Takes Manhattan, Twilight Time, For Whom the Sweetie Belle Toils, and Equestria Games. I think that's all the ones. I don't think I missed any. And in this one, so he wrote a lot of episodes in season 4. Like one probably the writer that popped up the most this season. So kind of the start of that here, and I think he did a really good job of writing this one. So, I mean, like I said going into it, I mean, one of the things I really liked about it is of course, introducing kind of more universe continuity into the series. So both story-wise and character-wise. So, I mean, here we're obviously revisiting Daring Do, so we're playing on all the stuff that was started in Read It and Weep. And, of course, we're also dealing with Rainbow Dash's character now as sort of being a big, humongous fan of Daring Do, and in contrast to sort of how it was at the beginning of Read and Weep. So it's kind of funny to see her, very into reading, and you read that book like 12 times now and stuff like that. So it was kind of a nice little bit of character continuity, and seeing, that carrying over from Read It and Weep, and how she is really into reading and really into the Daring Do books, even rivaling Twilight. And they kind of have that little in the beginning, that little interaction between them where it's like, where Rainbow Dash is saying that, she's the biggest fan, and Twilight's like, well, I'm the one who introduced you to the books. So, kind of nice continuity in that aspect, and of course also in the universe of Daring Do itself with all the characters. And you can also build upon what Mr. Ben was saying in chat there, as well as when they first encounter Daring Do, and they're all kind of watching that whole situation unfold from outside, and Daring Do is pretty much getting just clobbered by Dr. Cabellaron's hench ponies there, and they're just kind of standing out there watching and not doing anything for it. But I mean, it's kind of just showing how the main six, and especially Twilight and Rainbow Dash, are kind of having trouble separating reality from fiction, because up until a minute ago, they just thought these were, they were really into the books. Daring Do's kind of one of their heroes, and they think it's all fiction. So here they are, suddenly it's not fiction, but it's taking a little time for it to sink in, and really watching all that unfold through the window is kind of not helping, because it's almost like they're watching a movie from the outside, and you can kind of see that take effect, where they're talking about it and about the action, what's happening, and sort of like you would during a movie or watching a television show or something. And it really isn't until Fluttershy kind of lampshades the whole situation after the fight, like, shouldn't we go in there and help her? And they're like, oh shit. So again, it's kind of that, they also kind of struggling to separate the reality from the fiction of the situation that they're thrown into. Yeah, I mean, like shock and just completely unexpected, and just not taking some time to adjust to the reality of the situation here. Yeah, I mean, I definitely, going into the episode, wasn't expecting that. I was kind of interested to see where they're going, because like I said, Dash just going to be reading a book again, or how are they going to kind of frame this episode to actually get us into be Daring Do? Is it going to involve Daring Do a lot, or is it just kind of off a side note to the episode, and it's going to be more focused on Dash, and the book is just kind of side note, or how are they going to work this in? So I definitely wasn't going in expecting them to make a real. As soon as I saw Icky Yearling on the screen, it was like, oh, that's obviously Daring Do. But even at that point, until she's actually revealed, you're like, well, maybe she just looks like Daring Do because she kind of is putting herself into the fiction, and Daring Do just kind of looks like the author, just in terms of the artwork. And so it still kind of wasn't entirely sure until they actually did that reveal, like, oh, they actually are going there. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty. I think it's pretty clear that Equestria, even though it's obviously kind of molded after America in terms of like where cities are and the city names and stuff, it's not anywhere near as kind of expansive as actually it is. It's probably still pretty expansive. I mean, they're horses; they can run pretty quickly, but yeah, it's definitely not anywhere like near as expansive as the like our in real life country is.
I will say I do have to admit I did really like the fact that the fans kind of jumped on that with the Stanley Parable parody with the line going all across the equestrian map.
I think one of the interesting things this episode kind of delved into story wise is the kind of the relationship between creator or celebrity or whatever and fans of it, and sort of seeing at the beginning with Rainbow Dash sort of having like the same kind of reactions that a lot of people in the fandom do to hiatuses and stuff when she finds out that the book is being delayed. It's almost like foreshadowing for how long the season 4 to season 5 hiatus was, with everyone pretty much having the same reaction that Dash did to the book being delayed 2 months.
I would say that was a nice little fandom nod, yeah. Even if it wasn't intentional.
Even then, I mean, it's definitely kind of referencing that whole like fandom mindset of, and also the mindset of wanting new stuff now, but having to realize that it takes some time to create. And of course, Dash just doesn't care. It's just like, oh, she's got to spend every waking moment writing this book. We got to go over there and help her make sure she has nothing else to do, so she can spend every moment of her life finishing this book. Pretty much what Dash said. So yeah, please don't drive over to Megan McCarthy's house and try to help her with stuff. I thought she already did last season when she was talking about her. She was already talking about her self-insert Daring Do fan fiction last season in what episode was that? It was the Spike at Your Service episode.
I thought it wasn't so much fan fiction, but I thought it was just more of an autobiography that was just sort of self-embellishing her the unreasonable levels, like Mary Sue level.
No, it was definitely fan fiction. It was.
I'm gonna have to double check and look on that. Because I honestly don't remember. Actually, heck, I got some free time. I'll look at it right now.
I got it right now. So. Okay, no, it wasn't. I was wrong. That was Daring Do, but it was kind of like. It was kind of like a little bit more towards what you were saying, because first it's talking to Applejack saying like help you with your unfinished novel, which I also thought was hilarious. But yeah, mine's about this awesome Pegasus who's the best flyer and becomes the captain of the Wonderbolts.
Yeah, see, that's what I thought. And Rarity's all like, however did you come with that ingeniously woven intricate plotline? Yeah.
More or less still fan fiction, though.
Yeah, still.
It was still nice to have another like just Daring Do episode with all of the different parodies and stuff worked into. Obviously Indiana Jones, a lot of that worked in, some like Lord of the Rings and stuff. And just seeing that kind of mythos kind of world that this episode kind of throws us into, like we did in Look for Sleep. I mean, obviously My Little Pony already has a lot of sort of mythology inspired events and characters and stories and stuff, but this is a lot more in your face than we normally get with this, with kind of the Aztec kind of inspired setting that we have Ahuizotl in down there, and sort of like directly kind of parodying Indiana Jones with the temple and the treasures and stuff they're trying to get. It was nice sort of having an action kind of story like that again, like we had in Read It and Weep. Yeah, but that's a really good point, Tim, about pretty much it's kind of a separate whole world that the main six really aren't involved in. And I kind of wondered like where exactly they travel to after when we're going to see Ahuizotl and stuff, that sort of Aztec kind of inspired land. Like where in Equestria or outside of Equestria was that? Because we don't really see them travel there. Or see the map where they're going there. We just kind of arrive there, and I'm not sure. I don't recall seeing that on the official map itself that we've gotten at later dates. So it kind of makes you wonder where all the action is taking place, and how much influence Equestria and Celestia have in that area, because they definitely seem to be some pretty big villains like Ahuizotl out there that are completely oblivious or completely separated from the likes of like the main six and Celestia and Luna. Obviously something like Cabaleron isn't something that the Princess of Friendship and her compadres or Celestia are going to really worry themselves for, but something like Ahuizotl is a little bit more bigger of a villain. So it's kind of interesting again seeing that sort of separation, that there is other heroes and other action that's going on in this world simultaneously, apart from what we normally see in the show. Okay, cool. Yeah, and we got kind of quite a few of those DM this season as well, between like this and Power Ponies also being another action-packed kind of otherworldly episode as well. Yep, that's one of the kind of the humorous animation things in terms of the cover there. Yeah, that's another thing I remember a lot of people pointing out after the episode, sort of like how Celestia is the one who traditionally has manipulated the sun in Equestria, but how there's this other object that in the episode there that's I believe what the exact word, I forget what the exact wording was. It's gonna send the world into like everlasting daylight or something. I forget exactly what the claim was.
800 years of heat
in
the Tenochtitlan basin.
Did it specify sun, or was it just heat?
It was just heat.
Okay, so I mean that doesn't technically, I guess, even necessarily even involve the sun then.
I was about to say, I mean, he could be it is very possible he was talking about a very different kind of heat entirely, so.
But even then, it isn't. Another point to make is, even if we were talking about the sun here, I don't really think that should throw any show canon into a loop or anything, because it isn't like necessarily that Celestia is the sun, or has always controlled the sun, or is the master of the sun, or anything like that. It's very possible that there could be other magical beings or other magical objects that could also have control over the sun that might have a negative effect on Celestia and Ponyville, kind of working against them in terms of that respect. You got to keep in mind that, when we're looking back again to like the Journal of the Two Sisters that we were talking about last episode, and in that book, if you go and read it, it talks a lot about how, the unicorns would, raise the moon and the sun before Celestia came to Equestria and took over that, her and Luna took over those roles. So it's not like they were always doing that either. They just do that because they're alicorns, they're powerful, they are able to do that easily by themselves, where unicorns were not for it. So just because something else might have control over the sun, even if that is not even necessarily the case in this episode, that doesn't kind of throw the whole show canon in terms of Celestia into any sort of loop or contradict it. Which is one complaint I do remember hearing back when the episode premiered, which was, holy crap, a long time ago, so it's kind of hard to remember exactly what things were. That's an interesting point there, Mr. Ben, in terms of mythology. Yeah, it was really nice kind of seeing those kind of Aztec things. Again, just kind of pulling more styles into the show of different cultures, which is always fun to see. Like, obviously this past season we kind of had the one episode where we had a lot more like Indian culture, and both in music and food and location. Another thing this episode kind of delved into is about, again, the whole creator celebrity thing, but also about putting them up on a pedestal and almost fictionalizing famous celebrities or creators when in fact they are real people. It's kind of a subtle thing that the episode kind of goes into. Obviously we think that Daring Do is actual fictional character because she's in a book, but it's kind of mirroring real life, where a lot of times if we don't know someone, but we see them all the time on TV, they're a celebrity or whatever. We tend to fictionalize them, and that's the whole going into the whole kind of privacy versus kind of like tabloid news, where we have all these tabloids that follow celebrities around, and say what and everyone buys into them and wants to know what their celebrities are doing, where what are they failing at, what are they doing good at, what are they, pretty much their own personal story, but it's it's a real person. So it kind of dives into that as well with Rainbow Dash putting Daring Do up on this really high pedestal, like she is some god, like an actual fictional character that can do no wrong or doesn't need help or anything like that. When in fact she is, winds up actually being a real pony here, and trying to deal with that and listen to her feelings and her emotions as well.
It's also very interesting in the sense that while the other main six are okay with, or at least seemingly okay with invading Yearling's privacy, Twilight exists as the voice of reason, despite being just as a big a fan of Daring Do as Rainbow Dash. And the main reason for this is because if if the toy line was telling the truth in that her mother was also an author, then Twilight's family may have well been on the receiving end of such loony fan shenanigans as well. So Twilight may have been well acquainted with how bad of an idea that the more fanatical fans are. And judging from the season premiere, she was probably getting plenty of that treatment just for being a princess to begin with. So
we'll get there when we get to Twilight time later this season as well. But also, I don't think that the rest of the main six also weren't that keen on doing that. It wasn't really until Rainbow Dash sort of said, "Oh, she can always say no," sort of like implying that we'll go there, we'll ask if she says, if she doesn't want it, then we'll leave no harm done. When in fact, when Dash actually does go there, she starts fangirling so hard that even though it's pretty obvious that Daring Do doesn't want them there, or aka Yearling, I guess, doesn't want them there, she continues to insist and try and flatter her and stuff like that. And that's when Twilight kind of has to pull her out of that situation. She's a princess, Technotron. I mean, she can do whatever she wants. I don't think it's anything about secret connections more than she's the princess, and she probably can, find that information. If anyone can find that information, she would be able to. Or maybe just or maybe she just has so many books, and one of them happened to be a phone book. Kind of reminds me back to the time travel episode from season 2, where they're trying to sneak into the Star Swirl of the Bearded Wing and in Canterlot, and eventually they get caught, and the guards is like, "Oh, hey, Twilight, trying to get in there. Here you go. Have a good night." I mean, even before she was a princess, obviously she was very well known and had some clout in Canterlot. Other than that, I mean, story-wise, this episode was very primarily an action-oriented episode, with the action driving the story, Once we get past the introductions and kind of setting up where the episode's going, we follow Daring Do. Daring Do gets captured. Rainbow Dash kind of plays a role and hurting that situation, and then they kind of go in and rescue Daring Do. So story-wise, it's kind of simple, but I just like how they interwove this kind of character story with Rainbow Dash, and to an extent, Daring Do as well. In terms of, again, that whole thing about fan versus creator, celebrity, and Dash kind of dealing with that as the episode goes on. So that's what I really like about the episode. I mean, yeah, it's an action episode. Its story is going to be kind of a simple premise, a simple flow, but weaving those character interactions into it was really well done. Anything else for the story and the writing before we move on? So I think in terms of relating to the season arc and theme, I mean, obviously this episode doesn't. I guess this is kind of when people were kind of like maybe also becoming some people were coming maybe a little disappointed with the episode, not just necessarily because what the episode contained, but what it didn't contain. because I think, again, a lot of people, after what happened in the first two-parter, and then that kind of continuation that happened in the previous episode, Castlemania, kind of, here we have another standalone episode, at least in terms of this particular season's story arc, that didn't mention it or had really anything to do with it. So at this point, again, it's kind of that hype that some people had building up. Oh, this is going to be some sort of big continuity series story through all the episodes this season, and it kind of broke with this one. But then also people trying to read into it is like, oh, maybe how does this fit in with the season? Does it fit in with the season? And I think it was one of those things where, looking back on the season, you can appreciate it a lot more. But going forward, there was just a lot of uncertainty with some people in the fandom about where they were kind of going with that at the time. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and this show is really, it's not going to be that. I mean, that's one of the reasons, looking back, I really did like this season, is because they did manage to balance both having a continuing kind of storyline while still having a lot of, individual episodes. And I think they also did that very well in this past season, in season 6, working in a lot of the season storyline and a lot of the events that lead up to what happens and the characters that are included in the season finale, and place them in throughout the season and kind of build it up, while at the same time keeping all those episodes individual. It's a good question. Mr. Ben, I guess it kind of also goes back to, do Capillaron, do Always Yodel up to this point, do they know that AK Yearling is Daring Do, even, as well? Are they familiar with the books? Is there a big divide in terms of where they operate and where the books are sold, that maybe they aren't privy to them? Or what? It's definitely an interesting question to think about.
Well, obviously, though, when we get to, last season with Stranger with Fanfiction, you have Caballeron walking around the convention, seeing everybody dressed up as him. I think at that point he would have known about it.
I would have to make a rebuttal on the sense that Caballeron is also a criminal, and that he probably committed enough crimes that whatever money he could have gotten from royalties would probably be nothing next to the sentence he would have gotten if the police got a hold of him as well. So
yeah, I mean, it's kind of like one of those things, like if your hero, if your arch enemy, the hero, is writing a book about you, I mean, what are you gonna do about it? I mean, you're a criminal. I mean, that's what you do. That's where you make your money, is by stealing artifacts and reselling them. If the hero that's defeating you is going to write a book about it, I mean, even if they know about it, what are they going to do? I mean, I guess they could out AK Yearling as Daring Do, but would anyone believe them? What would that even accomplish? I don't know. I guess I don't. I doubt that even if they know, and they probably do, why they would even care. It would probably make them pretty pissed off at Daring Do, even more so than they already are. Just how she's writing these epic adventure novels about how she's clobbering them and defeating them, and probably embellishing it quite a bit. But in the end, I mean, all that's going to do is make them want to hate them and capture her, and her treasures more, which is just more stories for her.
And yeah, it's possible, and because a lot of people just kind of write it off as fiction to begin with anyway. Just because a book is similar to real life events doesn't mean that it's actually real. And the best way for her to keep a secret that big is to write it as a fictional event anyway. Mm-hmm. I mean, no one would think to question it if they believe it was fiction anyway. And it also fits with one of the season's changes anyway, since the main 6 no longer send letters to Celestia, but they make a journal about their experiences, and life lessons for other ponies to learn from them. And Daring Do's stories are basically a journal just available to the available public. And even if most ponies consider it a work of fiction, they do contain information about Daring's enemies, the relics she saved in an old civilization she studied to begin with.
Yep. So really, I mean, I guess in the grand scheme of things, I don't really think it affects anything that much in their world.
It doesn't. I was just I was just asking out of curiosity.
I'm glad you asked it. It's a great thing to discuss. I guess thinking on it now, I guess really it doesn't really affect them in the world. I mean, if some of the readers, will they actually encounter the real Dr. Cavalier? I mean, I would assume that Cavalier would probably operate a little bit more on the shady side, and wouldn't run into people that might recognize him that often until we get to season 4, where they do kind of play on that, actually, when he's in the convention there, and he just kind of blends in with the rest of the Cavalierans, and really and Patton Oswalt's character doesn't even really believe it's him, because it's just another cosplay. So even if someone actually encountered him, it's like, would they actually believe it's actually him? Do they even know what he looks like? I guess they kind of do. I guess they would have to, because they have the cosplays of him. But even then, down to the T, would they know what he looks like besides the costume?
Of all things, this has kind of reminded me of that Avatar show where they're going the Fire Emblem or the Ember Island players. Where the kid tells Zuko, that his scar's on the wrong side.
and really, it kind of makes sense in the context of the world as well, because Daring Do, obviously, Cabaleran, especially Cabaleran, is out there to steal these artifacts and sell them to make money. Daring Do isn't in that business. She's there to protect the artifacts. She's the Indiana Jones of this, belongs in a museum kind of thing. So she's not really making any money off that. So on the side, what does she do to try and make some money to support herself while she's going on all these grand adventures for free, or at her expense? Is write a book about them. Put the adventures on paper and sell it and make some money that way. Sort of like how Indiana Jones was a professor on the of archaeology on the side there to his day job. That's how he would make his money, because he's certainly not making money going out and fighting all these bad guys and rescuing these artifacts.
I thought Dr. Jones was a professor of history at the local school or something like that, university.
Yeah, it was something like that, history, archaeology. Yeah. He was a professor there, at the school.
And either way.
So I guess that can kind of work in as a reasonable reason she would be writing a book in the first place about her adventures. It'd be pretty easy to do if, to write about what you did and embellish it.
I guess it ties into my earlier point of them being like actual, just publicly available journals or something like that.
It belongs in a museum. Oh gosh. So let's go ahead. Let's go on to character discussion here, and let's talk about some of the character and their characterization in the episode. Like I said, I think this episode had a good amount of characterization and character building in it that was kind of intertwined with the action-oriented story. We'll probably start with the main character that probably has the most characterization and character building here, which would be Rainbow Dash. I would want to start with just saying that all of her kind of fangirling throughout this episode was ridiculously hilarious and adorable.
I will say this: Rainbow Dash won the face of the episode.
Oh yes. I think we know which face he's referring.
I think one of the interesting kind of character notes with Dash that I had for this episode is it's just kind of really funny and interesting at the same time to see her as someone who's really so self-confident and, very egotistical about herself and whatnot. Seeing her very nervous and taken aback by someone and acting very unconfident and awkward around it. It's funny. It's she's acting in this episode a lot more like you'd expect to see Scootaloo act around Rainbow Dash, and pretty much how Scootaloo acted in the what's the episode name from season 3 last season, the Scootaloo episode in the camping where they went camping.
I know what you're talking about.
I always
but I don't
forget that
remember the
episode
name
name
of
for
it.
some reason.
Sleepless.
Yes, thank you.
That's it.
Yeah, Sleepless in Ponyville.
JD to the rescue.
And Dash is pretty much acting very much like Scootaloo did in that episode here, which is just kind of, it's funny to see that. See as someone who's normally shown as the confident, as the person that people look up to for, you know, and someone who might have a lot of fans or stuff. Seeing that person as the fangirling as someone else here over her hero was interesting to see. And we also get to see her going through a lot of emotions. I mean, she starts out with this, you know, being very fangirly and just being all up in Daring Do and you know, just not being able to control herself. And then kind of after that first part, we see her being a little more cautious and a little more nervous and awkward after that, where she's starting to follow her and she starts to rush in after her and kind of stops herself and is like very nervous about this and how she's going to act and how Daring Do is going to see her, and then starts having some really, really awkward interactions with her for it. And then it gets to the point after Daring Do gets captured that, because Rainbow Dash wants nothing to do with it, she wants to leave. She doesn't want to see Daring Do again. She thinks that she is worthless herself, and that she's the whole reason that Daring Do got captured, and she can't help anyway. And it just feels, you know, just so worthless. And of course, we come back from that at the end where, you know, Twilight gives her speech about how Rainbow Dash was putting Daring Do on a pedestal and not being able to see her own worth and how she could help. And so it was kind of nice seeing where they took Rainbow Dash's character all throughout this episode from start to finish.
I do like, I really so much like it. I did have to laugh that Rainbow's priorities were a little skewed. That her main concern upon seeing yearlings messed up office is that the next book wouldn't be finished. But then when she realized that Alizota was a real threat, that was like the furthest thing from her mind. So.
And it's funny, just even going forward in the episode where Daring Do is fighting Alizota, you just have Rainbow Dash kind of sitting there on the sidelines like she's watching a movie, you know, just and a lot of that there it's a little bit different than before when they were just kind of all starstruck and not sure. Here it's Rainbow Dash is actually legitimately nervous about getting involved and hurting what Daring Do is doing, and she winds up doing it anyway and inadvertently, but you know, that's why she's kind of hanging back there and just kind of watching the action. Yeah, and it was nice seeing her make that recovery and sort of showing the true hero that she really is, and has shown us many times, you know, in the show, and with her, you know, her loyalty and everything, and going back there and actually helping to, you know, rescue, you know, Daring Do and sort of turn her mindset around, that, you know, maybe sometimes help is okay, and it's okay to ask for help. And I think that's one of the interesting things. We can move on and talk about Daring Do as well, and seeing that not only is Rainbow Dash learning some lessons here and getting some character development, but she's also having kind of like a teaching or passing on lessons to Daring Do herself as well about what, you know, wanting to help, and that help can, you know, be very helpful sometimes, and and having her maybe not always have to do everything 100% alone all of the time. And that's something we see continued and carried forward in season 6 in this past season, in the Daring Do episode in there, where she carries forward that kind of mantra of, being okay, asking for additional help, or seeing if you're getting help from Rainbow Dash in the context of that episode. So it's something that was carried forward with her character. And of course, that whole "I work alone" mantra is 1-to-1 pretty much parody homage to Indiana Jones himself, who also said the same exact line. But Mr. Ben, her work does involve secrets. If everyone was following her on her adventures, then they would spoil the books.
Exactly. I was just about to go into that. Because you have like non-disclosure agreements to keep what you're working on a secret, and if you're working on a big storyline, you have to keep elements a secret from readers and revealing them at the right time. And it's hard to trust people when you're a creator, because even your relatives and close friends could betray you and leak crucial plot information. You can't trust your superiors because of pesky executive meddling, and the Daring Do books considered to be an analog for the show, then the real Daring Do is an analog for the show's writing team.
Hey, Arizodal, I know I just kicked your ass, but can you sign this NDA for me real quick? Thanks. Actually, that would be an interesting plot point for an episode going forward. Is what happens when the villains get tired of it and just kind of start spoiling everything, publicly spoiling her next novels, so she can no longer write them. Like if they kind of anonymously go and leak information about what happened because they know what happened, then what does Daring do? Because then she can't keep writing, and she can't keep her livelihood up because her books endings or plot points or whatever are being spoiled. That'd be kind of a cool thing to see. It's all an elaborate ruse. On that aspect, Mr. Bennett, I'd love to see just an outtakes like they do with the Equestria Girls, but with the ponies. Like a little short, like a little short outtake reel.
Yeah, that would work, yeah.
If they actually would have commentaries and more extra features on the DVD releases, maybe I'd actually buy them. Because that's one of the cool things about the actual Equestria Girls Blu-rays is they're worth buying because they have the movie in high definition and on a Blu-ray, and completely uncompressed sound, and very high quality, a lot better than like downloading it from iTunes, which I do for the rest of the episodes. But they also have audio commentary and some interesting bonus features on them. I wish Shout Factory would do more of that stuff for the season releases. Like they did it for the first season, where some of the episodes had commentary on it, and they had a nice bonus feature. But most of the other ones, the most they'll include is just recording from one of the Comic-Con panels, which has been available online for like a year. Get some more commentary on a couple of the episodes, or maybe more than a few of the episodes, and maybe a worthwhile blooper reel or something like that on the DVDs, and I will buy the episodes again. You can have more of my money. But as it is now, just buy them on iTunes because they're a lot better quality. I would say another strong suit of this episode, which kind of involves the characters, but also a story aspect, is they didn't keep the other main six around for longer, really, than they needed to be. Because this episode kind of falls into that trap at the beginning and the end, where, you know, really at the core of this episode is about Rainbow Dash and Daring Do, and sort of them playing with each other and building each other's characters. And so, you know, and a lot of MLP episodes, especially in the earlier seasons, you have to throw Twilight. You got to throw all the other characters in so they get screen time. And you wind up having to juggle all these characters, and it doesn't necessarily always work out that well. Here, they do that in the beginning, where it kind of makes sense, and of course you got to involve Twilight, but then they pretty quickly have Rainbow Dash go out on her own and chase after Daring Do, and have pretty much the entire middle part of the episode on her own until the end, where she's at her lowest point and her friends come and cheer her up, and they all go and, you know, have that big action scene at the end and save the day, which I like that they did that. I like that they separated Rainbow Dash from the group and allowed her to have that development on her own rather than trying to have the main six with her the entire episode. Is there any other character points for Rainbow Dash or Daring Do or any of the other characters that anyone wants to bring up? I mean, it was nice because it was nice seeing Aoi Zodel and Capilleran again, but I mean, they're obviously very cookie cutter kind of villains and characters, just because of the fact that obviously this is supposed to be sort of like a semi-fictional, world and parody of fiction.
I will say this: I actually do find it interesting that Aoi Zodel not having very high-level magical powers will actually allow him to operate a little bit further under the princess's radar. Because you have like these villains like Chrysalis and formerly Discord, and you would think that with someone like Aoi Zodel maybe dealing with this particular situation, that this would probably be something that Celestia or even Luna would probably want to look into, but the princesses don't even really pay attention to him. And it's the fact is that he's not even really threatening all of Equestria, but he's only attempting to like control one specific valley. So that's another particular issue that he's helping to conceal his efforts from the situations.
And I guess it also kind of involves where exactly do like Capilleran, where exactly do Aoi Zodel operate? Is it in Equestria? I mean, it could vary. All this action could very well be taking outside of Equestria, outside of Celestia's domain. And we obviously know canon and show that Celestia isn't the ruler of the entire world that they're in, just pretty much Equestria, and there's lands outside of Equestria that we have seen and haven't seen in the show, like this, for example, the Saddle Arabians that we haven't seen, that are outside of her view. So if Aoi Zodel, Capilleran, and these guys are mainly operating outside of Equestria, which I believe that the Aztec area probably is, that's another reason why that they would remain under her radar and she wouldn't really be doing anything or be privy to anything that's going on with that.
And then, like I said, I mean, earlier in the actual chat, I mean, Aoi Zodel, just the fact that he even exists is just, horrifying to begin with, because, he is a creature from classic Aztec mythology, a semi-aquatic monster that attracts victims by mimicking baby weeping and then catching them with his tail and then pulling victims under the water to drown. So it also does make some a little bit brilliant from the writers, because the actual show Aoi Zodel, like mythical counterpart, is Very fond of death traps.
In response to that comment there, I don't think they spoke at all, but Aoi Zodel did speak to them and give them orders in English, so it's, I think you could imply that they all speak English. I really think in terms of this show, most of the stuff that you're going to see is probably going to be kept in one language, just for simplicity's sake, and because, it is a kids show, yeah, it has a wide appeal, but it is a show for kids, and you start throwing other languages and subtitles into the mix, you're making it a lot harder, especially subtitles. Because remember, a lot of kids watching this might not have a really good reading comprehension level to accurately, read subtitles and get a lot of worth out of that. So I think you're really going to see them stick to one language, and also it also makes things a lot easier in dubbing as well. So for other languages, just because of that fact. What did you say about my mother, Mr. Ben?
What? Oh.
It's not really so much kids are morons, but subtitles can be hard, especially if you're just learning to read. I mean, a lot of kids can easily watch TV and get something out of it, and maybe even understand it, but reading words, especially if they're dialogue subtitles that go by really quickly on screen, you're just probably not going to see that ever happen in this show with another language. Just because you're gonna lose out some of the audience there. Now you're making me hungry. Do we actually hear Zecora ever speak another language? I mean, she obviously has a very heavy, African sort of accent, otherworldly, but usually most of the ponies we hear in this show, they speak English, but they kind of denote other cultures or languages by giving them, kind of the stereotypical kind of accent, like we have in season 6 when we have, the Indian culture, and they speak with Indian accents, even though they're obviously speaking English. So, I mean, I'm not sure if we know that Zecora can speak another language or not. She just happens to, have an accent since she's from a distant land.
I'd say the fact that she speaks in verse is just a different language in and of itself.
That's true. I'll give you that. Yeah, and even then, with something like that, it makes you want, it's make us be some sort of incantation or spell. But yeah, I think normally just language, it's not something you're gonna see done that much in the show at all. Anything else for characters and characterization? Okay, voice acting would be the next thing to go into. So, what does everyone think about anything that stood out for anyone with the voice acting of this episode?
Seriously, Brian Drummond did a really good job with that.
Yeah. course, it was also great to see them have I mispronounced her name, Shiria Zani. Maybe I can't tell if it's an SH sound or a CH sound for her name, but reprising her role as Daring Do as well in this episode, even though she didn't have much dialogue in the first one. Kind of got to expand that role there and give her a lot more vocal personality.
As we were getting into the discussion with ponies with accents, can't even pronounce his name. Caballeron's voice was pretty well done as well.
Yep, and that's something we heard a lot more, in season 6 as well, since he was featured a lot more in the Stranger Than Fan Fiction episode. Okay, so how about the humor in this episode? What did everyone think about this episode's humor? I think it was another one of the strong suits of it. They had, I think this episode might hold the record for most Wilhelm screams in a My Little Pony episode.
Poor Wilhelm, him and his extended R.I.P.
Rainbow Dash acting like every fan the moment a new season is announced. 4 more months.
That's how I am right now.
We also get another rare instance of Fluttershy going deadpan snarker as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Rainbow Dash is like, 2 more months, but I've already waited so long already. I don't think I can make it another 2 months. And Fluttershy's like, I can vouch for that.
Also, speaking of that, the cold open of the episode there, where Rainbow Dash is kind of flying around like crazy in excitement, and then she winds up hitting her head on the tree, and you have those real birds that hatched out of the eggs that Fluttershy was looking at flying around her head, that little classic animation visual gag, but with quote real birds for that, which is a nice little twist on it.
And say I already mentioned the Stanley Parable line reference.
Mm-hmm.
We got to return to the So Awesome face as well.
Yep. Like Pinky's line when she's talking about I believe it was the punch. No, it was the cupcakes. Where she's like, "You might say the secret ingredient is a secret." And I know someone mentioned this before, but that whole map transition, which was really cool, ending with Pinky actually being the one painting the line behind them, which was another great, very Pinky visual gag, breaking the fourth wall.
Just the big ball of violence that the hired goon that rough up Daring Do just have those cutie marks there. And if you look at the goons, just their cutie marks just basically mean that they're essentially that's their whole purpose, is basically being thugs.
I think probably my favorite thing humor-wise in this was just Dash and Twilight trying to pretty much out-fan each other when they were arguing, trying to figure out if they should go after Daring Do or not, and help her out. And they're both like giving these really off the wall like nonsense facts about the show that obviously we don't understand, but are very deep facts that a fan of Daring 2 would understand. They're just both trying to go back and forth with all these ridiculous facts, which is funny on its own right. But then you have Pinky in the background, just nonchalantly nodding as they make each of their points, agreeing with them, like closing her eyes and like, yeah, that's a good point, just in the background. And then eventually, for the last two ones, Fluttershy just gives Pinky this look at when she nods, like you can tell that she's thinking, really, are you seriously like understanding this right now, Pinky? Why are you nodding? It's just such a wonderful humorous detail in the background animation there. Just it didn't need to be there, but it just added another layer of humor to that scene.
One of my favorites scenes was, like how Tim just mentions here, was Daring Do's response to Aoizotl demanding for the ring. Was like, I love you, but I can't give you the ring until I have properly proposed.
What a great one-liner.
I'd say that was great.
So, do you have these prepared, Daring Do? I mean, going into it? She probably spends most of her time writing one-liners to say before her adventure.
I also love the fact that in the climax, Applejack couldn't even remember how to pronounce Aoizotl's name.
Drop the
She's
ring,
like, drop the ring, Aoi, whatever your name is.
And right after that, another really small bit that I probably still want, is one of my favorite humor things in the episode, was that's when they all, right after Applejack says that, all the main six kind of rush out and start fighting with the henchmen, and Pinky does this like really quick like hop, like how she does her hops when she's walking, but she does it really, really quick and really determined. This like really determined look on her face while she's doing it, and kind of angry look on her face. It's so funny to see them kind of mix her being a little determined and angry and serious about something while still doing this really quick hop. Oh yeah, the kitten. I love how it cuts to Rainbow Dash looking extremely scared after they show the kitten. That would scare me if I saw Pinkie Pie aggressively hopping towards me. It might be an aggressive hug, or it might be about to be assaulted with cupcakes.
See, it depends on whether her main's straight or not. If it's still poofy, I'd still hug her. If it's straight and strained, then I'm getting the fuck out of there.
Or she comes at you with a demon face, yelling, "You Pinky promised!"
Yeah, that would be another time to get scared.
Although, to be fair, this is Pinky that I'm talking about getting away from. I don't think I'd get very far.
Good point. Let's see, anything else for humor that anyone wants to point out that we missed? Okay, so we can go on to the next section, which is animation for it, and this had a really lot of good animation in this, especially with all the action, all the fight scenes, and all the really nice choreography throughout all of those fight scenes as well, both in the middle and also of course the big final fight scene, bouncing all the main six, doing fighting all the hench ponies while Rainbow Dash and Daring Do worked to get the ring. It was really nice choreography and a lot of good animation on that as well. And of course, this was already mentioned before, but probably one of the most infamous faces ever from the show, with the Dash "I ship it" face. Oh my god, I think I was probably one of the first really big meme faces of the show. I mean, there's been some wacky faces before, but that was like one of the first that was really it's kind of started a trend of having really ridiculous faces. I really like a little smaller note at the beginning at Pinkie Pie's party. Rainbow, I don't remember. Applejack is doing a really funny looking dance with that ridiculous apple sombrero or whatever she was wearing there. Yeah, there was the original Dash face, but this was when it kind of they started taking some of these faces to a whole nother level. So much that this is I think this might be kind of what started the best face of the episode thing. I don't really recall seeing it that much before this episode.
Yeah, I think I started that running gag with this episode too.
And on the note of the map we talked about in the humor, I think this is the first time we really saw a more detailed map of Equestria, because I don't think it was until after this where we got that actual official map release. But I believe in the Journal of Two Sisters, or maybe the first Friendship is Magic book. But it wasn't until I don't think we had gotten a map of Equestria officially until here, where people were sort of able to piece the parts that we saw together from the different frames of the episode. And it was pretty much I believe it was pretty much the same map, just stylized a little differently. So they must have already had it, some sort of map of the world by this point. Yeah, I definitely, that's one of the coolest things I think is that after the couple of seasons we've gone back and we've gotten other map releases of it, and they've added the locations that we've visited now in the show, like Starlight's Village and Yakistan and the Griffinstone and all the other things, to kind of see where they are in relation to the main Equestria cities that we had already knew about or that were already on the first map. And also getting to start to visit some of those cities this past season, like Las Pegasus, which was also on the map, and actually getting to visit that because we hadn't visited it all before here. And besides the Dash face, there's a lot of other pretty funny faces throughout the episode, but they were very much dwarfed by that one. And of course, Aoi Zodel's objection pose at the end there was fantastic when he's screaming stop her.
That was a great pose.
Mixed with the vocals, it was just so perfect. And we got a little bit more of that season 4 lighting at the end there, where we kind of have that resolution between Daring Do and Rainbow Dash, and they're talking to each other, and they're backlit by the setting sun there. So really nice lighting and shadows on them, and it's really cool to just kind of watch that animation and kind of go frame by frame and just see how like their arms and stuff will actually cast additional shadows on their body as they're moving. So some really nice shadow and lighting work there, and in After Effects. Okay, anything else for animation before we continue? Okay. Just get to the episode here. Okay, so we can move on. Still no songs this season yet. We will get there very soon. But we obviously did have a lot of score and backing music for this episode, and a lot more than last week. Last week was a little bit later, but this week, obviously, with this being a Daring Do and a very action episode, we get all those Daring Do themes return. A lot of high-paced action music as well here. So it kind of starts right here at the beginning, where went to the wrong pause. There we go. Right here at the beginning, where Rainbow Dash is talking about the book and kind of recounting some of the adventures, and we kind of see some of those in this little action montage of some of her past adventures. And this is where we get our first taste of the Indiana Jones style music and themes of the episode, as well as the Daring Do trumpet fanfare from the previous Daring Do episode. See, I can't remember if there's anything in this next track. Let me see. Yeah, we kind of have this is kind of an interesting track. It's a lot more kind of a classical sound to it in terms of MLP. This is the sort of track you would hear, the score you would hear from earlier episodes from earlier seasons. Of course, it has some electric guitar in there for Rainbow Dash as well. And then we kind of get into the bulk of the action Indiana Jones adventurous type of score that the episode has. And this is from the map scene here. So this is the music that's back in at the map animation as they're traveling to Icky Yearling's house. Kind of working in some of Daring Do's motif in there as well. Let's see what the next track here is. So this is the next one is when Daring Do's is revealed. So we hear her motif when Icky Yearling is revealed to be Daring Do. And then we get to the big fight scene between Daring Do and Dr. Caballeron's henchmen. So in this next track, we get a lot more of that very action-adventure fight scene music that we'll hear throughout the rest of the episode. We also get interspersed Daring Do's motif in there as well as she does certain things. And this ends with Dr. Caballeron making his entrance, and we hear his score in this episode. And this score is reprised again in the next Daring Do episode in Season 6 for Dr. Caballeron. You'll recognize this score from a lot of action episodes going forward in the series. Daring Do's theme there. Here's Dr. Caballeron's motif. From there, we can fast forward a little bit now in the episode to where we have the next big fight scene between Daring Do and Dr. Caballeron, and then Aoi Zodel making his presence known. So this is a little bit longer track. It goes through a couple of different things, different themes here. We will hear Dr. Caballeron's theme reprised in this track at Daring Do's, and then as Aoi Zodel makes his appearance, we hear his score as well from the previous Daring Do episode. And of course, a lot of action interspersed. Back to Dr. Caballeron here. Here he comes. There's a lot more percussion here for Aoi Zodel. And then from there, we get to the emotional scene of the episode with Rainbow Dash feeling that she's failed and that she's not worth everything, and Twilight trying to help her cope with that and to bring her, her morale back up. So in this one, we'll hear a couple different things. We'll hear the Magic of Friendship theme in this one briefly, as well as Twilight talks about friendship. And again, that's a theme we're going to be hearing a lot of this season. This was pretty much the theme of this season. Hear more in this season than most of the then we'll hear it in other seasons. So we'll hear that, as well as a very nice, very emotional theme with a nice chord progression at the end of the track here. And there's the Magic of Friendship motif there. Actually, I recognize this theme. This is a theme we hear a couple times going forward in Season 5 and Season 6. And finally, so yeah, I forgot that theme was in this episode. That's might be the first time that particular theme is used. That particular motif is used there, because that's one we will hear for some emotional scenes in future seasons of the show. So finally, we get to the final track here of the episode, encompassing the big final boss fight between the main six, Daring Do and Aoizotl and his hinge ponies. A lot of very epic epic and battle music here going on, based on what we've heard before in the episode. So let's go ahead and listen to the final track. Work Daring Do's theme in there. And now we get to Aoizotl's percussion-heavy theme. And here we get to the battle music that we've heard a lot of times in the show after this. Music here. We heard that particular score there previously in Sleepless in Ponyville as well, when Scootaloo is like in the rapids here, and the rapids in that episode. Right before she falls off the waterfall. Aoizotl is really loud. We entered a very nice rendition of Daring Do's theme there, as Daring Do and Rainbow Dash, kind of build a friendship there at the end. So that's all the score for this episode. So yeah, a lot more in this episode with, anything with a lot of action and adventure, and it is going to have a lot more score to accompany it. So we got a lot more of that this weekend. We'll have a lot more of that coming up when we get to Power Ponies as well. But I really like the score. I mean, just a lot of this stuff is also pulled directly from the previous Daring Do episode. Look for get my episode. Read It and Weep. So I got a lot of score pulled from that. And I just really love the blatant kind of homage to the scores and music from the Indiana Jones series as well. So it matches the episode very, very nicely. And I really like the Daring Do theme as well. So kind of starting to wrap it up here. What does everyone think about the episode's theme and moral?
There's actually 3 of them here. It's only one of them was actually pointed out and recorded in the journal. The first of which was not to learn to put others on a pedestal if it means to forget your own self-worth. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the second one is that something simply can't be done alone. You need to have some assistance with you. And then, of course, obviously, don't be a dick. And by that, I mean don't invade others' privacy unless they actually truly need help.
Yep. And a lot of it's just, again, sometimes... sometimes even if you don't think you need help, getting a little help can be very, maybe not required, but can be very helpful. I can't think of another word for helpful, but yeah, I mean it really does help a lot, and it kind of it's one of the things that Daring Do learns, because we kind of get, going back to the multiple morals, Rainbow Dash and Daring Do both learn something in this episode, and it's something completely different for each of them, which is nice. I really do. I will say that Rainbow Dash's journal entry for her, the lesson she learned is so Rainbow Dash. Just had the coolest adventure with the coolest pony ever. Came this close to blowing it because I got so wrapped in how awesome she was, I almost forgot about how awesome I was. Just wow. But actually, she does mention the other lesson here as well. Good thing I didn't, because it gave me a chance to show her how important it is to put your trust in somebody else. So, favorite parts and any concerns for the episode?
Like I said, pretty much my favorite part was, whatchamacallit, Daring Do effectively taunting Alizolo with the ring. Says, I can't propose until I can't give you the ring until I properly proposed.
Hashtag dash face. Gosh, favorite parts. What was it that I had said here? I really just liked overall how, again, just using continuity. This is where we really start to revisit past episodes in the series. Before this, a lot of episodes were very individual. They might continue a theme or a character arc. But before this season, there weren't a ton of episodes that dealt specifically with something that happened in a previous episode, and expanded upon it or continued it, besides if it was a character arc or, a character building thing. But here we pretty much take what we had and Read It and Weep, and we expanded upon it. It's sort of like how we had Amending Fences, which went all the way back to season 1 and expanded upon what happened in the season opener. and a bunch of other episodes going forward in future seasons where we start doing this a little more. And that's something I really liked about this episode, is again going back, revisiting that, pulling these characters back, getting to see some characters that we saw in the past again, changing things up a little bit and making them real, and then providing some nice character development for both Dash and Daring Do as well. I think if it was well executed, it was not something I was expecting from the episode. It was definitely kind of a risky thing to take, interesting move to take, but I liked where they went with it, and like where it's gone farther, where they call back to this episode than in season 6, which is really cool. And yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I said if I didn't really like all the action, and it's nice to have an action adventure kind of episode during the season, even if it's not like the opener or closer. Yeah, and I guess really that's another thing I really liked. It's kind of balancing a couple things. I'm not really sure which is my favorite, but like DM said, just Rainbow Dash's kind of character progression throughout the episode, and seeing her completely out of her element in a lot of ways, and seeing her being the fangirl for once instead of like Scootaloo fangirling her, and seeing her in that position, and seeing her at a point where someone who's always so confident and very cocky about herself a lot of times, seeing her being very awkward and timid around her hero, and also seeing her fail at that, and not see any worth in herself anymore during that episode's low point there.
Also got to admit, going back to the favorite parts, I kind of liked now that I remember that scene with the big fight scene between Ali Zodel and the main cast in Daring Do, especially with Pinky just aggressively pronking at aggressive hopping.
Frankly, for me, in regards to two-parters, I kind of like what we got. I wouldn't say I prefer an action one versus a character one, because I think they're both really good in different ways. And a two-parter allows you to either do a lot more character development or do a lot more story and action story. So it isn't just a bunch of action scenes strung together, but you actually can tie a story into it, like the Discord season 2 opener. And I really like that about the series has gone on so long now and had so many two-parters that they've been able to try out a lot of different things. And we've had the two-parters that are a lot more action and story-driven and villain-driven, and we've had two-parters that are a lot more emotional, a lot more character-driven, and delve deeper into maybe a certain character versus having a lot of action. And I mean, it's cool that we've gotten both, and it's nice that they're that we can get that in the show. No, we have never had a two-parter that was not a season premiere or finale.
I didn't think so, but I just wanted to double check on that.
Be an interesting concept, but I think they probably shy away from it because, one, they want to have the two-parters and opener and closer because they want to have enough time to set up and conclude whatever the season arc is. And they don't want to, and then additionally have another two-parter in the mid-season, which obviously eats up another episode they could have done. So that's probably why we don't see them do that. Be cool to see it one time though. So any final thoughts and conclusions, overall feelings for the episode? I give it 2 dash faces way up. I think this is a great episode. A really enjoyable episode. It's not going to be the best episode ever, but I don't think it was bad anyway. and it was a start of a really hot streak for David Polsky this season. Had a lot of great episodes coming up to talk about. Mr. Ben, we don't want to go back to those Flash games we played. Oh God.
You just had to dredge up some painful memories there. I wasn't even thinking about that when I wrote that.
And now it will never leave your head again. Pregnant Twilight Foot Doctor. Why are all three of these things in the same game? But yeah, I mean, I definitely agree this. I mean, I don't really get any sort of legitimate hate. I mean, not that this episode is perfect in any way and doesn't deserve some criticism maybe in some aspects, but I definitely don't think it was a horrible episode or anything like that. Yeah, I have to agree there, Mr. Ben. That's the worst part. It's just like, why are there so many, and why not just for MLP, but why are there so many for so many different franchises? Oh.
Yeah, it's the same. You asked the same thing when I ran that Phantom video the other day when she did more weird things.
And why are these all on the kids game website is another question to ask. Oh,
Exactly.
I don't.
Who thought this was a good idea?
Someone made that. Someone made those. They put time and effort into them. Oh gosh.
The only legitimate explanation I could think of is that someone designed it deliberately as a troll game. Thinking, hey, what type of game can we make that could shock and piss off a bunch of people all at once? I know, Pregnant Foot Doctor for My Little Pony, and every other related franchise.
See, if it was just a couple of games, I would agree, but hundreds of them, and a whole website dedicated to them is just wow. Someone likes to play them, I guess. Oh. Well, anyway, that's about it for our Daring Do discussion here on Equine Episode Examination. So thank you so much for joining us and participating in that discussion today. We will be back next week, next Tuesday at 5 p.m. again, Eastern Standard Time, where we'll be talking about the next Season 4 episode, Flight to the Finish, which is another really big episode and a really, really good episode that sets up kind of another side arc for this season. So we'll kind of get into that, this side arc that this season has when we get to that next week. But it's a big Scootaloo episode, big CMC episode, and Ed Valentine's first episode of the show. And I think we might actually have a song to talk about as well then. So we'll have a lot more to talk about. Yay! So, I mean, there's definitely a lot to talk about next week. Just not in every aspect, both in story, character development, music and score, and animation as well. So a lot to talk about, so we'll probably maybe run a little bit longer next week for that. In addition, we'll be announcing this Saturday, we'll be announcing what we're going to be doing on the next CQ Riffs. So make sure you tune in to us on Saturday. We'll announce that then about what we're doing, not this Saturday, but the next Saturday for episode number 99 of CQ Riffs. And if you're wondering what we're doing for episode 100, we're keeping that a secret until that. So you won't know what we're doing for episode 100 until we do it. So surprise, it'll be a nice surprise. But we got to get through episode 99 first. And one final announcement, if you didn't see it yesterday, next Monday we'll be having episode number 2 of This Weekend Pony. We accumulated enough information, enough news stories now to do that, and we kind of, some of them are going to start getting a little stale, so we want to go ahead and discuss some of those before we start getting into the meat of season 7 news and maybe movie news that are coming out. I know that there is a Hasbro press conference. I think it was might be one of the quarterly earnings report or something coming up. Matt had linked to it to us when we were discussing about some stuff. So that's coming up in February. So we'll probably have a lot of stuff to talk about then. So it gets kind of clear our palette now. As always, we now have a show page, if you haven't seen it, for This Week in Pony, as well as an episode archive. And both on that show page and on our front page, we have direct links if you want to submit any news stories or fan works or any other news stories relating to the show or the comics or anything else regarding My Little Pony. We have a link to submit news there, as well as to submit viewer questions. So we have that kind of question and answer segment where we'll discuss one or two questions as a group. And they can be questions about anything regarding the show. We also have another link there where you can ask that via our Tumblr as well. You don't have to have a Tumblr account. You can do it anonymously. Hopefully you can at least put your username so we can credit you with any news or questions you submit. But we'll be doing that on Monday. Be a little bit later. It'd be at 5:30 p.m. on Monday rather than 5. It'd be at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we hope you'll join us for that, for our second episode. We'll have quite a bit to discuss in terms of the name of the episode is Writers Roundup, because we have a lot of writers' information that Matt, hopefully he'll be able to join us, because Matt spent a lot of time compiling a lot of writing information that will be very useful for us going forward and for Season 7 as well. And we have a lot of also merchandise news and comic news to discuss. So make sure you join us for that next week. Besides that, that's about it for here. So thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week for Flight to the Finish. So bye-bye, everyone.
Later, folks.
See ya.